Hello, my name is Vernon Stroman, Jr. I am 33 years old. I am from St. Augustine, Florida, native of St. Johns County, born and raised. I am currently running for and a candidate for the Anastasia Mosquito Control District Seat 5. The reason why I want to run for this position is because I am from here. I'm a citizen. That's what qualifies me. So I care about my county. I care about where I'm from. Also, I was privileged to have experience with mosquito repellent uniforms in the United States Army, which kept us from shoving down a bunch of malaria pills and things of that nature. And when I learned more in that research that Anastasia Mosquito Control worked with other mosquito control departments, other science entities in the University of Florida to develop that technology, I felt what better way to give back. Simply, if they cared enough about us when we were overseas enduring hardships from the enemies of America, they thought well enough to put something in that was very much needed. Insects are bad in other places, not just Florida. And by them doing that, it just created a respect, but also created a passion in me to just move forward and start pushing along and get involved and make a difference where I saw that I can make a difference.
Cool. So tell us about how do you feel about the current Mosquito County? Have you been to the meetings?
Yes, I have. Went to the last meeting where it's very interesting. They actually talked about the budget. And those are always fun, especially when you go line item by line item. I currently feel that it does have a very good focus, but there are some questions about what's going on in the community. There are some points where people aren't educated as to how important mosquito control is. There were even some talks in the last meeting about it being a special district, letting the county take it over. Well, you know, where I believe that it should remain a special district because if you hadn't realized, our county has enough on their plate as it is. And over there at the Mosquito Control District, they really look at things from the microeconomic level rather than the macroeconomics, you know, looking at the bigger picture. They look at the small picture simply because you have to start small. A lot of times there's a simple solution to a complex problem. So I like what they have going on. I feel that we need to maintain it, but I also feel that I can bring something to the table to add to that. Number one being new. I don't have a whole lot of experience in mosquito control, and I'm not ashamed to say that, but I'm very learnable, very teachable, and willing to be taught everything so that I can teach everyone around me what I'm learning, because our county, they have to go to work. They have to take care of their families and take care of other responsibilities such as bills without harping on mosquito control, where I become the ear and the voice for the community, where they can rely on me to get information, or if there's something that needs to be put out to them, I'm going to be the one to do that.
It's just swatting bugs, right?
Not just swatting bugs. I wish it was that easy. I thought it was. But definitely it's not just swatting bugs. We do have inspector sprayers that work very hard. They go out into the woods and maintain parts of the different counties. We have biologists and other scientists on staff that are looking and experimenting with new ways or current ways, just trying to make them better. And I really like that. One thing that I did like when I went over to the Mosquito Control Division, I took a tour, and some of the scientists over there are very young, which is very promising. That means that this art that they've put into place with the Mosquito Control Division is not what we see sometimes in the market as dying arts. People are carrying it on, it's being pushed on and moved on, which is another reason why I'm running. I'm young. This is no disrespect intended to anyone else, but people get older. People pass away. So I believe this knowledge can't be lost. It needs to be passed down to someone younger that can move on to make it better and work with what's currently going on.
Are you familiar with some of the past discussions on the Mosquito Control District? One was one of the big ones right before I got here was spending a couple $1 million to buy a helicopter for spraying. Have you considered? Are you familiar with that, and what's your views?
Yes, I have considered it. At first, when I thought about it, I was like, oh great, you know, helicopter, it'll be aerial support. Then I learned that most of the helicopter use was for surveillance for the hot spots. Also, if you look around the state and you look at other mosquito control divisions, there's a gentleman down in Titusville, Florida, who has a lot of, should I say, aircraft. But he made one statement. He said, if you haven't needed or used one in the last 60 years, chances are you don't need one. So I believe the best thing that we have going is our substations right now. Currently, we have one closed down in Ponte Vedra, and that's going back and forth. I believe that we should open those substations simply because if you talk to those other divisions too, they basically say you guys are very lucky to have those substations because we can service different parts of the county at different times because there might be a hot spot in the north area, might not be so hot in the south area. Also, it's great for the wear and tear of the vehicles. If you really look at it, if we have trucks at one substation, trucks at another substation, they don't have to drive 30 or 40 miles out to make the trip and then start to work. They can remain at that substation, go to those smaller areas because those trucks, when they start to work, are only driving 10 to 15 miles per hour. That's a lot of wear and tear on the transmission.
Would that scenario require additional employees?
There is a state, I'm not sure, I don't want to quote it if I'm not sure about it, but there is a mandated manpower number that they must have. And I believe with that number, we can handle it. Also, should I say, if we do go below that number and we deem it necessary, of course you do have to hire people. That just goes in any business. That's just common sense right there. If we need more, we go to, that's why we have a board. We talk about it. We make a sound decision with respect to our taxpayer dollars and respect to what the situation is, and we add it as needed. But if we don't, I believe we can handle it right now because we've been handling it for these years, and we haven't had a major West Nile outbreak or dengue fever or encephalitis outbreak. There's something going right.
I'll shut up in a minute and let Margo ask some questions. But another one of the big debates was the land that's owned over on the west of here, north and west of here, and I know there are some members of the Mosquito Control District that think we ought to close down or at least downsize the current station, move everything, build a new building. What are your views?
That would be great if they had enough room to house everything. If you have 100 yards on a football field, doesn't make sense to go down to 50 to try and make it work because it's just not going to work. Centralization is a great idea, but for what we have, it's not going to be a good thing. You can build a complex out there, but I guarantee you a couple of years later, you're going to be going out there to add on more, which means more money. Where if we keep the substations, like I was saying.
Oh, okay. So you're saying to expand the use of substations rather than build a newer central facility?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because the central facility, it's going to just take more money to complete. Now, if they wanted to build a facility that would accommodate the entire mosquito control division, that would be great, but it can't. But then we're running away from the good thing that we already have going with the substations.
All right. So one of the concerns, one of the arguments to do that is because of the age of the existing facility over on the island, and it's in a flood zone, and if a hurricane should come, all the chemicals that are there, this would put it out of harm's way.
Yes.
And all of those arguments that are made. What are your thoughts?
This kind of goes back. I used to work for ADT, which never did centralized monitoring because of something like that. What if a hurricane comes here? If all of our stuff is there, we're not prone to just have a hurricane hit the island. Okay, a hurricane can wipe out this entire town if it really hit us in the right way. So what happens if everything is there? You never put all your eggs in one basket. It's just simple. I'm not going to say, let's move everything here, have it all in one spot, and then you never even know. In a field, a tornado could happen out there. We're not, absent from having a tornado. You never want to have everything in one spot. Simply, if the island floods, guess what? We've got the North Station. If something happens in the north, we have the station that's in Hastings. Or even if something happened out on 16 where they're using it currently right now for testing, which is a great idea, instead of testing it by neighborhoods, which is a great idea. You have more area there if you want more tank sites. Just to, should I say, gird up the loins in case you need more. But I don't think it's a good idea centralizing everything. We're covering our county.
Margaret?
Do you think, though, that we need more substations? I mean, at this point, from what you've seen and looked at around the county?
No, I don't think we need more substations.
Okay, so with the three we have, the main and then Ponte Vedra should be reopened, right?
Yes.
And Hastings.
And Hastings. Right? And there is one in the 210 area right behind the fire station right off County Road 210. I believe we can make that operational again to take care of the Julington, the northwest part of the county as well too.
Okay. Okay, when you talked about the budget the other day, what was your sense of how the money is being spent? If you had been on the board last week, what would you have done?
Well, right now, what I've learned, the money right now is being spent as well, actually, as people say it's spent until something is found wrong. Mm-hmm. That sometimes is the problem that I saw. Sometimes there can be a hidden agenda where a certain amount of money is supposed to be utilized in a certain way, mm-hmm. and someone will come back and say, well, it's not. And that's a problem that I can see, or what I take away from that meeting. But overall, it seems like the money is being spent properly. One thing that was very commendable by all the commissioners, they decided to give up their office allowance just to make way if they needed more employees, or if the employees needed to be taken care of a lot better, which is very commendable, because I mean, when we look at it, there's a couple of things that really only matter to me. Mosquito control is probably should be one of the most simple ran government entities, because sometimes it is just like swatting flies. But those gentlemen go out and work hard. Gentlemen and ladies go out and work hard. Make sure that the areas that we deem necessary need to be sprayed. But if we concentrate on our neighborhoods, where our families and children are at, our tourist areas, and then through other surveillance and testing, if we see a hot spot in the swamp, take care of it. But that's the main focus, taking care of people. And that's one thing that I did take away from the meeting over there with the budget. The budget is very geared toward taking care of our citizens, but also respecting the tax dollars of those citizens.
You said you wanted to, we need to examine the benefits and detriments of alternative methods of extermination. Yes. So tell me a little more about that.
I believe that sometimes you'll have a product that will come in or be presented, mm-hmm. and they'll say, well, hey, this is going to be good. This is what we need. Well, you know what? Let's look at what we currently have. And if there's someone who presents a product to us that say it's good, let's look at all the products. Let's look at everything that we can. Because unless we have the full knowing, full education of what's out there, we can't make a sound decision. And then we make a decision on a product that someone has basically sold us on to say is the end-all, be-all, and 3 years later we're saying, hey, we could have saved money this way, or we should have looked into this. Let's look at everything constantly.
The argument is that there are basically a couple of ways to do it. You kill them once they've hatched, or you kill them before they hatch.
Yes.
Basically, you stop that, and larvicides or pesticides. And with the environmental protection and all that, there's just not, according to the argument, there's just not a lot of opportunities for many choices. There are really only a couple of ways to do it. And so there's not a lot of products. My question is, with your background in that, did you have experience with other chemicals or other types of treatments that were used perhaps while you were in the Army that maybe are not being utilized here that you think merit some discussion?
Well, I would have to probably go the other way, because anything that might have been used in the Army might have been a little bit more harsh. Because being in combat zones, they probably didn't care too much about that environment. But one experience that I did take away from that was things are constantly coming out. As long as we stay within compliance and stay within the guidelines, and also, as I said, what we currently have going on as well, just finding a way to maximize that. If it's current and if it works, I definitely believe if it is broke, doesn't need to be fixed. Mm-hmm. But if it does need to be fixed, and if it's broken, we should, always welcome the opportunity to look at other avenues, staying within compliance, of course.
Okay, let's go back to the helicopter.
Okay.
Now we lease time. Like last week, we had the aerial spraying on the lease time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think? And obviously, $2 million for a helicopter is a lot if it's
Yes.
not being used for aerial spraying. So are we in the right ballpark in terms of future spraying by leasing rather than owning our own?
I would say yes, simply because anytime you have any type of vehicle that's just sitting there, it's either wasting or saving money. And if we're allowed to keep that program, whenever we need it, we lease it and they come spray. If you looked here when the hurricanes were here a few years back, FEMA even offered to come in and do it for free. Mm-hmm. So if we know we have that government backing, if we have a giant outbreak and we really need aerial spraying, or we can just lease it when we need it and keep that money in reserve all the time, to me it's a no-brainer. And again, going back to the gentleman that's down in Titusville, we haven't really owned a helicopter. We haven't even owned one in the last 60 years. So why do we need to do it? It's just wasting money, where we could be putting that money into more community education. I know one big thing that's brought up over there is the downtime, because you do have peak seasons in mosquito control. So what happens with that downtime? Well, seasonal employees are let go until they're needed again, but you have to also take into account last winter, where we didn't have much of a winter, where we had more mosquitoes forming. So you have to take that into account, but also take some of that money. Let's do some more community workshops. Let's go to more schools. Let's actually hold workshops in neighborhoods for homeowners associations.
Well, let's stay on that topic for just a minute. That's one of your major things that I read in your outline is education. Big on education.
Yes.
You talked about it in families. You talked about it in neighborhoods. How would you go about, how would you recommend that the district go about, how would you change their current type of education? What would you do? What would you advocate?
Basically, like I said, I want to stay within maintaining what's currently happening, just adding to. Do more of it. I wouldn't say.
Let me ask this. What are they currently doing that you're aware of?
I know that they do education in schools. I know they go to elementary schools, middle schools, high school level. As far as me knowing how they are in the neighborhoods, don't really see that. And if they do that, I haven't seen it. My main thing is to go to neighborhoods. I mean, if you go to a development like I live in, everybody has a homeowners association fee. Okay, so yeah. They have a board, and those boards are always welcoming events in to educate their homeowners or to educate the community, because you have to realize if I see a bucket of water there, and if I'm new to St. Johns County or new to Florida, and if I don't know that those little things squirming around in it are future insects, I'm not going to know to dump that water out. And that's just something that's so simple that if you talk to everybody in the neighborhood, everybody doesn't think about that. Everybody doesn't know that. So talking about what I would advocate, I would just advocate more community programs.
You're talking about more of a grassroots level.
Yeah, more of a grassroots level, because just like when you talk about education and families, one thing that I grew up with, it starts at home. We don't go to school to learn how to act with manners. We learn that at home. We don't go to our jobs and learn how to be on time. We learn that at home. Well, we should learn that at home. Just everything, it starts just, and I really like the term grassroots as you use. I really like that. It's down to earth, down home. And just common sense. A lot of times we complicate problems where it's just, like I said, a simple solution to it.
I'm going to shut up for a minute. Then what do you have? Let me look real quick, Vernon, and see, because you've answered virtually everything those I think are the major issues. Let me ask another question. You're running against a scientist and someone who's been in this area a long time and has varied life experiences.
Yes.
Knowing what you know about those, why would I vote? Why should I vote for you? Why should I support your candidacy?
Okay. I respect my opponents. I respect their experiences. I respect, even the scientist, my opponent, he has a lot of accolades. Has even studied the mosquito for over 12 years. But I guarantee you it won't take me that long to learn how to service people. Simply because it doesn't take all of that. What Mosquito Control Board needs is someone with common sense, someone down to earth. I've studied economics at Florida A&M University, so I do know how to respect a fiscal budget. And also, it needs someone who's willing to learn. If you look at my opponent's records, I'm sorry to say they've lost in previous elections simply because the community had made their decision. And I felt that the community felt that they didn't need them at the time. But I believe with my age, I'm going to be here for a while. I can learn everything that needs to be taught to me. And I don't know everything about mosquito control, but there's one thing inside of me, whatever I'm tasked to do, I will master it. But I will always master that with respect to the environment and respect to people. If you look at what I do, I'm an insurance professional. I was in the military, and I was also a surgical nursing assistant at Flagler Hospital. There's one thing that I'm well versed in is listening to people's needs, assessing the needs, and finding something to satisfy those needs. But the big thing comes in listening. God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I know what I should do more of.
So with that statement, are you saying that you believe that the current or past boards have failed in that regard?
I wouldn't say they failed. I mean, failures sometimes can be a good word or a bad word. I wouldn't say they failed. I just say that they need just to add more and just learn more and keep educating and keep progressing. Definitely when the record was started, I guarantee in the first year the record was started, everything, all the cogs and whistles and bells didn't work correctly. But they've done an awesome job for the time being. But what I'm going to bring to the table, I guarantee you that I'm not just bringing myself to the table, because you won't hear I all the time as I hear my opponent saying, I did this and I did this. My main goal is to have a responsibility to our citizens. That's just it. My first point on my platform is service. And that's what it's all about. We're appointed by people, so we're there to service the people. Not sometimes be stuck in a lab, or not sometimes be, stuck on myself all the time and realize and point the finger at other places. And, when it's just about people, if you take care of our citizens, take care of our tourist industry, because if tourists come here and they get encephalitis, guess what? They ain't coming back. Take care of that part, we'll be fine. And keep it simple. There was if I can end on this, there was a mosquito control director that I studied up on, Hampton Michler. He kept things very simple. In those downtime months when they weren't educating, he had the men and women over there servicing the building, cutting grass, painting it, because if you take care of a steel building, guess what? You won't have to build a new one years later. You can replace a beam, you can throw paint up, because the main goal is not how pretty the building is. The main goal is the mosquito control effective?
Killing bugs.
Is it effective, and are we using taxpayer money correctly? That's just what it comes down to. It's so simple, and people are going to try and bring up these astronomical numbers or big ways to handle it, when it's just simple. Take what we have, enhance what we have, keep it moving in place, and keep moving forward with it. And sometimes when you have people with too many accolades, I think they start to overthink things, and 2 things happen when we overthink it. Either we overthink it and we make a decision that we have to go back on, or we're still thinking 20 years later about it.
Martin, more questions?
No, I think.
Vernon, we are going to allow you, and I tell everybody in this room, that's a tough thing to do, is get the last word. But we're going to let you have the last word, and you get to close and tell us and the public Anything that we've overlooked, anything else you want to say, or any clarifications or any reiterations? The floor is yours.
Okay, just want to say that I love St. Johns County. I was born and raised here. I really care about where I live at. I want to gain your vote in the 2012 primary election on August the 14th to become your mosquito control commissioner in seat 5, to make down-to-earth decisions, but to also listen and take your needs and concerns to help with making those decisions with respect to your taxpayer dollars. And remember, service is my main goal, and you can always trust a combat veteran because it's service you can depend on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.